Hello and welcome to another episode of The Wannabe Entrepreneur, the podcast about what's really like to bootstrap a company. And today we have another interview. I'm here with Thomas Evans. Hey Thomas, thank you for accepting my invitation.
Yeah, no worries. Glad to be here.
So we were just chatting off the record here on the reason why we connected on Twitter, and I basically tweeted a tweet saying that I thought that after 6 months you are not making enough money to cover your cost, or like you're not making enough money from your projects, then you should just quit and try something new. And Thomas found me and said, no, actually, we've been building Email Octopus for a long time, and that's definitely not true because it took us a while to reach profitability, and now we are a big team and we are living from it. So today we'll be speaking about Thomas' bootstrapping career and also about Email Octopus. Speak a little bit about yourself, like who is Thomas, and a little bit about your background.
Yeah, I am now currently working on Email Octopus, but I've not been in tech my whole life. When I was 16, I went across to India to learn how to make cricket bats. And cricket bats are basically kind of like a tennis racket or something that you use for playing the sport of cricket. So I was obsessed
That's random.
I was obsessed with sport as a young child. And more importantly, was obsessed with sports equipment. So football boots, cricket bats, tennis rackets. I spent a lot of time researching the equipment that went into sports. So rather than going the traditional route, which my parents wanted to push me down, which was, going and studying sports science, trying to get a job with Nike when I was, 25 or whatever, I decided actually the best place to do this, or the best way to do this, was to actually go to India, where about 90% of the world's cricket bats are made. So I went off to India as a 16-year-old. I turned up on a factory doorstep and basically said, "Can I spend some time here with you?" And thankfully, had a very welcoming factory owner, and I spent 3 months out in India, just learning how the trade worked. So from working directly with the factories, you kind of could understand how the margins worked, how the product was made, how the import-export process worked, and actually understand what goes into a business that makes cricket bats and sells them.
But wait, you just, as a 16 years old, you just
Yeah.
go there and you don't have anything scheduled. You just, or you had agreed upon, like with.
So
with
so I'd never met this gentleman, but I had agreed before I went. I don't think my parents would have let me go otherwise. That I was allowed to.
Yeah.
I sent an email to a few factory owners out there in a place called Meerut, which is about 80 kilometers north of Delhi. It's where almost all the world's cricket bats are made. And I said, "Can I turn up on and help you out?" And a factory said yes, and I probably not expecting me to turn up, and then I did. And this was back when I was 16.
How did your parents allow you to do that? My parents would never allow this. Like,
Yeah.
Going to India, because it's such a different country, and like as a minor going there to a factory, like what would they do it?
I mean, my parents, I think, know me as a person. They know I wouldn't take any stupid risks. And, as long as I funded the trip myself and sorted it out, and I had some emergency contact numbers in India to get in contact. My dad's, his company he was working for at the time had an Indian office. So I had some emergency contacts kind of as a backup should I need. But other than that, they were supportive of it, and they said, "Yeah, sure. This is what you want to do." I'd been obsessed, as I said, with sports equipment for a long time, and they knew that. So off I went and spent some time out there. Spent 3 months out there, learning, as I said, how everything works in this. Well, how the majority of things work in the sports industry, and learned a hell of a lot in that 3 months.
It's one of the craziest intros to entrepreneurism I've ever heard, to be honest. And I've interviewed a few people, so it's you get that prize for sure. And you said that you learned a lot about business, and yeah, for sure, no doubt. But you probably also learned a lot about yourself and about different cultures, because I have many friends from India, and I was there also for a wedding of a friend. And to be honest,
Yeah.
it was probably one of the craziest experience in my life, because as Europeans going to India, it's the way they live is so different, right? So what things did you learn also about culture and like about yourself that you didn't know before?
Yeah, I mean, I have to admit, looking back on it now, I didn't live the culture and all that kind of thing to the extent that I could have done or should have done. I was 16. I was pretty shy. I would go to the factory in the day, and I'd go back to the hotel at night and have dinner at the hotel. So it wasn't like I was walking around the streets of Meerut eating street food and things like that, as I probably would do now. A bit more confident. But it was a complete culture shock. It was just a fascinating, completely eye-opening experience. I kind of learned the importance of, or how important the kind of like the caste system is in India still, which almost was a shame. Being quite young, I struck up a bit of a friendship with the driver of the factory owner. So the factory owner, we're saying, is probably like 40 or 50, and the driver was probably in his early 20s, and I kind of struck up a friendship with him. And I remember him specifically asking me at the wedding we went to, because I didn't know anyone at the wedding. I knew the factory owner, and I knew the driver who had driven us there. And I remember standing with the driver at the wedding, and he said to me, is it a problem you standing here with me? Like this never happens. Why are you standing here with me? Because he was a bit confused about the whole situation. For him, he was just the driver. If people come, and he just drives people places. People don't stand there socially at a wedding and chat with him. So I think that was probably the moment that stood out culturally in India, kind of how there is still that divide.
How did that affect you?
I wanted to spend more time with him, because I wanted to show him you're a human too, even if you are a driver. But yeah, it made me realize how different that area of the world is, and that I'm very, very fortunate as well to live in the UK, where it is still pretty unequal. But I like to think that we have a lot of opportunity here in the UK that probably don't exist out there. So yeah, that was a real eye opener, and something that stuck with me from that trip.
Wow, what a great lesson to have as a a teenager. It's really cool. So you went there. You learned, I guess, a lot about cricket and about the business and building cricket bats and everything. You returned, and how do you apply that knowledge?
I tried to start my own cricket brand in the UK, so I imported some of the stuff. When I was in the factory, I designed some sports equipment, some bats and gloves and pads, and I got those made. And when I came back to the UK, I kind of launched a cricket brand, and in the end, I think I probably sold about 50 or 60 bats over the course of a year. It wasn't massively successful, but it was, an interesting time for me. I didn't have another job. I'd left school. All my other friends were at school, and I was working at Toys R Us, which is a toy shop here in the UK, doing carrying the boxes back and forth, as well as trying to set up this cricket bat company in the background. And then ultimately, the cricket bat company, I got some recognition within the industry because I was so young at the time. There was an article actually saying who was the youngest cricket bat maker in the UK. And as a result, someone got in touch, or I got in touch, and they gave me the time of day, I should say. A guy who was starting up a company, a cricket bat company here in the UK called Mongoose. Mongoose, if you're familiar with cricket, you'll know the brand. They launched in India and the UK in 2009, and I worked on the production, the design, and the distribution of those cricket bats, along with basically the owner of Mongoose. So I did that for 2 years until the company went into administration. So again, that kind of taught a lesson of how not to run a company, or how not to do some things in a company. It's something I look back on now. I realize how difficult running a product business, actually having a physical product, is, versus running a SaaS business. Like software is beautiful. Like if 1,000 people signed up tomorrow, we could handle it. Yeah, we might have to scale up some servers, but
Yeah.
we can handle
Nowadays, it's easier than before, for sure, with
Yeah,
AWS and everything. But
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
true.
Whereas if I think back to my days in cricket, and it's the same in fashion, it's the same with lots of clothing. You have to have, if you think about all the shapes and sizes people are, then you have children's sizes, and then you
Yeah,
have left
true.
and right-handed. Before, to just launch a cricket product, you have to essentially have 100 products, because you
Yeah.
have to cover all of the requirements that people will have, and then you have to make your best estimate of what will sell and what won't sell.
True. And you can update it as well on the fly, right? I mean, a bat, once it's out, it's out. You cannot see, oh, actually, it doesn't work in high conditions or like hot conditions, whatever.
Yeah.
It was just an example. And software, you can always update it. And yeah, for sure. In that regard, I totally agree with you. And you mentioned something interesting. You said that this piqued your interest for entrepreneurship, like working in this company, working with Mongoose. But I mean, to go at 16 just to learn about it and to drop school for that, this is your entrepreneurship, vein and passion was there already. Why? It's like, is your family, your friends, anyone like around you that you can look up to and say, okay, it's working for them? How did that come?
Not particularly. No, my parents both, have worked pretty standard jobs. They've never run their own business or anything like that. So it wasn't I looked up to anyone in particular. I look at things and often there is a logical route that to everyone else seems illogical. And I look at the prime example being, if I want to learn about cricket bat making, or if I want to make cricket bats, then the logical route most people take, as I said, is going and learning woodworking, going and doing sports science at university, going and getting a very entry-level job at a large brand.
True.
That to most people is what seems logical. Whereas to me, at 16, and even now, I kind of have that slightly strange brain, which is the logical thing was, I want to make cricket bats. Why not go to where they make cricket bats? And I think that can be applied to a lot of things in life. And I guess the entrepreneurship probably lived there, the deep within. I think there was also an air of arrogance as a 16-year-old that that you probably lose as you're a bit naive, aren't you, when you're young?
Yeah, for sure. But that's why parents are there somehow, right? Not why, but I mean, at least for me, it's, I'm still puzzled about that, because not only you went to India and then you returned and you dropped, I guess, high school, was it?
Yeah.
How did you convince your parents that this was the right approach?
So I'm really, really fortunate that I have the most supportive parents, in that they have always said, do what makes you happy. Yeah. And I know a lot of parents say that. They say, do what makes you happy, but go to university and get your grades first. My parents had always said, as long as you the money that you spend is your own, do what makes you happy. You're young. You've got plenty of time to kind of rectify any mistakes that you make.
Healthy mindset.
And I mean, my brother and sister are the same. They're both quite. They could have been quite academic, but my brother also left school at kind of as early as possible. I think when he left, he could only leave at 18. They changed the law here in the UK. I wouldn't have been able to leave when I did if I'd been at school only 2 years later. He left school to go and join the RAF, which he was passionate about, and likewise my sister. Yeah, my parents have always said, do what makes you happy, and the rest will work out, which very, very fortunate to have.
Yeah, and I mean, more and more, I think that the way education is organized is not up to date. And as you said, like, people, if they want to build construct bats, they go through university, they become a super expert, and in the end they're actually no experts, right? Because they never built the bat. And after 3 months, you're already building bats, and you can learn so much. And nowadays you have YouTube, and you can learn a lot, especially in software. You can learn a lot from those platforms. But how do you think schools should evolve? And I know this is a bit, far away from entrepreneurship, but I find it super interesting. How do you think schools should evolve to make things that, like you did, the norm and more acceptable at least?
Yeah, I think there has to be a move away from arbitrarily marking people's work. So in the UK, schools, they get more funding depending on how well their students succeed on an exam that someone's written, and there's a real push to make people exam ready rather than life ready. And I think schools, we have to move away from trying to analyze everything in the world and mark and compare people. Ultimately, people's journeys should be different, and as much as we need doctors and people that need to be academic,
Lawyers,
we need people that aren't academic as well. And I think trying to mark everyone along that same kind of marking system, it clearly doesn't work for a lot of people. And I know so many people don't enjoy school, so there has to be a move away from that. How that looks in practice, I have absolutely no idea. It's not something I've. It's far beyond the realms of my capabilities, and it's not my expertise. I don't teach kids day in, day out, so I'm sure a teacher would have a different opinion on what their children need, and I don't deal with children. I don't have children myself, so but my sense is that forcing people along these kind of marking systems and getting people exam ready rather than life ready, for me, is the wrong approach.
Totally agree. I was having an interesting conversation with a friend of mine. He's a musician, but he never really was able to make it as a musician, and even though he loves it. And I think one of the main reasons, and it's the same, I think musicians and entrepreneurs are very similar. We both need marketing, right? And marketing is something that is not interested in and is not good in at. So it's extremely hard for him to succeed, even though he makes great music, because no one is listening to it because he's not using the proper channels to distribute. So I was telling him that I think they should teach us marketing in school, or ways to promote ourselves, because in the end, this is crucial for almost every aspect of our lives. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think
I
should be?
I don't know about teaching everyone to become marketers, because it can be. There's enough marketers in the world as there stands.
Not marketers, but how to market yourself, how to sell yourself agree. Or your products.
Yeah, I think knowing how to market yourself and knowing how to position yourself and coming across well is something that there's just no one spends any time on. There was a lot of time spent on school, learning Pythagoras theorem and things that I haven't used since I walked out of that school when I was 16. But, I would love to see us or a school spend some time actually thinking about what develops people for the real world. And as you say, I think learning what goes into marketing and the skills of selling yourself and financial skills, just pure life skills. For me, I would love to see more schools doing that, for sure.
Yeah, it really breaks my heart when I see people that are really passionate about something that is more creative, not being able to live from it. Something that I know it really,
it amazes me. There's so many talented musicians. If I go to various pubs and bars and you see these live bands, and I've never been that talented about anything in my life, and they're there. With 5 people watching them and a man and his dog watching them, and it's just
crazy, right?
These people have so much skill. They should be paid more, and they should be shown or helped along that journey of making something out of that passion. Perhaps they are happy just playing at a pub. That might be their aims. In which case, crack on. But I feel like we could do more to show people how to make money and how to make a living out of their real passions.
I totally agree with that. Going back a little bit to our storyline. We got a little bit carried away, but I think it's just really cool to speak about all of it. You finished working for Mongoose?
Yeah, that was a tough time, I suppose. I was now at this stage, this was 2011, so I was 20, and I was out of work without any advanced qualifications, and I was a bit stuck, really. This was and at that time, when I was 20, I was, have I made the wrong decision here? I've gone all in cricket bats, and actually I've seen it's a really, really hard industry to crack. Did I do the right thing? Should I have stuck around at school and done accountancy or something like that? really crossed my mind. I was 6 months unemployed actually.
How did you like overcome that? Like, did you speak with people, with other entrepreneurs, your family?
At the time, I spoke with my family. Kind of, I did the whole thing of applying to. I knew I really didn't want to go back to education. I didn't enjoy it. It wasn't really for me. I spoke with my family. I spent a lot of time with my mum and dad were foster carers at the time, so I spent a lot of time with the kids, playing with the kids, and just realizing that there's more in life than just business. So that was valuable. That kept me going, and I was kind of worked out. I moved back to my parents' home, which is about 2 hours away from London. So quite, I don't want to say quiet, but certainly not a busy city. And I realized, okay, after a few months, I realized that I really want to be back in London. There's just so much going on. That's where I want to be. So I had no real aim of what I wanted to do in life. At that point, I was a bit like I was just like, I just want to get back down to London, which I think gave me a focus. It was okay. I'm going to be applying to jobs in London. I think life becomes a lot easier when you have a singular focus, and that singular focus about 3 months into an employment was, I need to be back in London. So I applied to a wide raft of jobs. Actually, the job I found was at a startup, and I was very, very fortunate. The startup at the time had no money, so the only place they advertised for their jobs was on Reddit and Gumtree, 2 places. And it was because of that I got the job. There would be no other. I was underqualified for that job. It was as a web designer. Right. I taught myself a bit of HTML. I'd known it from editing MySpace profiles and at Mongoose and the factory. I'd done a little bit of web stuff, so I was at least enough to get through an interview. And my knowledge of design was, at the time, I think it was a product called Fireworks, Macromedia Fireworks, and then Dreamweaver for coding. We're now talking about 10 years ago, so tech moves on quickly. It was enough to get me through an interview. I said the only reason I think I got that job was because they advertised in places that no one applied, and I was probably the only applicant. But
were you trying to find jobs in software or any area?
Any area. So I applied at the time. I applied to social media, law enforcement. I said I just wanted to be back in London. That was my focus, and I got offered it. So of course I took it and jumped at the chance, and spent the 2 weeks before starting the job reading learning as much HTML as I could, because I was going to be thrown in on day one. And I was looking at Dribbble and places like that for inspiration of how people design. I was like, no way am I ever going to be able to design something that beautiful. But did my best, learned the ins and outs of the software, and turned up at that startup. I think there were 14 people working there at the time, and turned up as kind of like the junior web designer. There was a senior in place as well. So we were there I was there for 5 years exactly. And
did they ever ask you, like, how did you get the job?
They didn't, no, and I don't think anyone actually ever asks that. As long as you demonstrate, I think everyone, when they turn up at their job, even if they're the most skilled person in the world, always is a bit clueless. So I managed to, I think, style it out. I managed to style it out, and I had some people there that they saw I was young, they saw I was willing to learn, and they spent time helping me as well. Fortunately, that was a grand company, so as I said, there's probably 15 people there max at the time. And when I left in 5 years after, there was probably 700. So
wow,
it was
that's great.
It's a travel agency called Secret Escapes.
Yeah, I've heard about it. Yeah, I worked in the travel industry as well. I worked at Trivago.
Okay, we were that. What were you doing at Trivago?
Software development.
Okay, cool. Yeah,
but after that, I worked in a also small startup called Weekend. And, was like somehow I guess more like similar to Secret Escapes. Like, we would plan the whole weekend with flight and hotel and everything, and people could just find like a dynamical way they could find their weekends and everything.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so I was fortunate. for that singular focus of finding any job, I was very, very fortunate. I found one not only filled with great people, but actually turned out to be a pretty successful business, and that stood me in really good stead. They developed me as a person quite well. You know, I started out in web design, and then I showed an interest for the conversion rate optimization, A/B testing. The designer who I worked with was like a perfectionist and hated the idea of A/B testing. He wanted his idea to be right, whereas I kind of welcomed it. I was like, okay, well, let's see what our users think. I took a pragmatic attitude, I suppose, that you know, my job is to design what the business and what the customers demand, not necessarily
not to be an artist
beautiful.
or something.
Yeah, exactly. So that stood me in good stead. That kind of moved me into conversion rate optimization. Later, when they eventually created their product team, they moved me into the product team as a product manager. I did that for about 18 months or thereabouts. Can't even remember. Before leaving to go and join the Email Octopus journey.
When did you meet your, I guess, co-founder, Jonathan?
Yeah, so actually, Jonathan's brother, I knew from when I was making cricket bats, of all things. And yeah, Gareth shared his brother's project, Email Octopus. So Jonathan built the initial version of Email Octopus. I looked at it and was like, okay, there could be something here.
What was his first pitch? Do you remember?
Yeah, so Email Octopus's first pitch was basically it was email marketing for less via Amazon SES, which is kind of like Amazon's email product. And the idea being that they make, or Email Octopus made sending email as cheap as possible, to the point where it was ridiculously cheap. I think it was $42 a month for 250,000 contacts at the time. So about, you know, I think we used to say about 100 times cheaper than MailChimp, and it wasn't far off. So that was the original pitch. I looked at that. You know, Secret Escapes relied heavily on email marketing. Jonathan didn't have an email marketing background. He was a software developer. So I got in touch with Gareth and said, you know, I'm not really enjoying my job at Secret Escapes. I had a boss I didn't like at the time, and she was due to come back from maternity leave in a month. And that gave me a singular focus of, I really don't want to be here in a month's time. And I really think having that singular focus is so beneficial. It was like, okay, I need to get out of here.
Did you have that single focus while working in Secret Escapes too?
At the time, I was happy to see where my career took me. So the big career leaps I've taken when, you know, something's clicked inside my brain and there's been I really need to focus here. The rest of my career has been, you know, meandering along and seeing where things go.
So when you're happy, you just enjoy the journey. When you are unhappy, you focus in one single thing that you believe it will make you happier.
Yeah, exactly that. 100% that. So I float along, see what life has to give me, and do what I can, and then something flicks a switch. Whether that's whether that's a bad boss or wanting to be in a different place in the world, and that gives me that singular focus to make a change in my life.
So your boss was about to return, and you said, "Okay, my single focus now is to get out of here."
Yeah, I've got to get out of here. Yeah, and it put me off having a boss. So I was like, "Okay, is there a way I can do this without having a boss?" Jonathan at the time had started Email Octopus, but he was working full time on another project. He was working for CoinDesk, the Bitcoin blog. He was he was the head of tech there. So he didn't really have time to spend on Email Octopus. So I basically pitched it to him. I said, okay, I think there could be something here. I think there's room in the market for there to be a cheaper alternative to the others. I know how important email marketing is because, you know, 80% of Secret Escapes' revenue came from email marketing.
Same with the Weekend,
Yeah. And I was like, okay, you know, I'll bring a little bit of business knowledge, some design knowledge, a little bit of everything, and let's see what happens. Actually started off working with Jonathan on a kind of a contract basis. So there was no formal agreement really beyond the fact that I would get 30% of any revenue that Email Octopus made. And
so that was what was stated in the contract, that you would get 30%?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly that.
But no salary, nothing, right?
No.
There was no salary. There was no
revenue. There was no salary. There was a small amount of revenue at the time, maybe 1,000, maybe MRR. Email Octopus had already been going for about a year and a half at that point, I think. So yeah, it was I take a a percentage, 30% of what it was. So I took that percentage and to alongside Email Octopus. So I'd Email Octopus two or 3 days a week, depending on which week it was, and then I did consulting on the other remaining 2 to 3 days a week for other startups on conversion rate optimization. So, although it was a jump, I guess, to go into entrepreneurship again and lose a salary, I kind of softened that blow by consulting alongside it. So when I left Secret Escapes, I had a salary hit because of it, but it wasn't impossible. I had rent to pay, and I still wanted to be in London, so that softened the blow and lessened the risk. As much as these singular focuses I've had have made me make big moves, as far as I've concerned, they've always been pretty low risk moves because I've always mitigated the risks by doing pretty sensible things. Making sure I've got enough money to go to India, making sure I had contact phone numbers of people who were in India, and then likewise with this, making sure that I had enough money coming in from the consulting gig to at least pay my London rent and allow me to have a couple of nights out a month.
Going to the beginning of our conversation about my tweet, right? When I said that if you're not making money, then maybe you should try a different project. Maybe to give you a little bit of context, I was aiming that tweet for full-time indie makers that are trying to live from their projects, right? So that's kind of the people I focus more now in helping and so on. I have a community and a bunch of stuff around that. And I do believe that there's a lot of people that focus on a project for a long time because they think it will work out, but they're not making, you said that you're making 1,000. That's already amazing, to be honest.
Yeah.
So they're making $50 or $10 or something like this. And for a long time. So of course there's more nuances than just quit and try something else. But I think in general, a lot of people should try either to quit earlier or try to figure out why it's not working. Instead, they just keep on pushing. And I think the community around always gives this advice too much. Just keep on pushing, it will work out. But I hate that advice actually, because if you keep on pushing, doing the same thing, nothing most likely will change.
No, I agree. I agree with if you keep on doing the same thing, nothing will change. But the thing I don't like about that advice is people, if you give up before you hit 1K MRR and start a new project, what changes? The thing is, you get better, you learn your business by doing different things. If you just continually launch new products, and this is why I don't like the 12 startup in 12 months kind of thing, you just get good at launching. And what is launching? It's basically building a product in its most simplest form, sticking it on Product Hunt, and then rolling a dice and hoping that it succeeds.
Right.
That, that's relatively easy to do. And there's no point just getting good at that. You have to spend the time learning what else goes into a business, like the positioning, the actual marketing that goes into it, how to create a compelling landing page, all of that kind of stuff which is way more important than just the launch. And my concern is if the advice is given to founders, if you're not making 1K MRR on your first project, then abandon it and start a new one. I think what you'd see, or what I'd expect to see, is that they'll run into the problem with that next project a year down the line because they haven't learned how to do the fundamentals that will turn a project from 0 to 1K MRR. So I agree with you to some extent. Some people are going up a dark alley with their product, and I think this is why you kind of have to almost view when you launch a new product, it's almost like an experiment, and there should be a pass mark, and there should be a point where you abandon it. Otherwise, it turned into the sunken cost fallacy, and you just pour time out for nothing. But I don't particularly like the advice where we advise where people move on, because they'll just make the same mistakes again. If you're not making 1K MRR after 18 months on a B2B project, I'd imagine there's probably something wrong with something you're doing within the project. And if you haven't identified what that is, then you'll run into that mistakes again. So my advice would always be, if you're not making 1K MRR after 18 months or a year or however long, it is a concern. And you should seriously consider what you're doing. But I think that is likely going for outside advice.
Yeah.
And reaching out to people who have been on a very, very similar journey and getting outside advice before you just walk away from it. Yeah. Ask them, okay, this is what I've been doing. For whatever reasons, it's not been working. And, I've seen some awful product ideas. So sometimes it is the product, but a lot of the time it is how the product is positioned and how it is marketed.
Yeah,
because if you look at Email Octopus, right, we've been doing this now for 6 or 7 years, but the first email marketing company launched in 1997, or thereabouts. So we launched our product about 20 years after the first one.
Yeah,
so we were the last of the last movers, and there were people that launched before us who have failed, and there are people that have launched after us which have failed. Some of whom had a better product as well. I'm not afraid to say it. That, when we launched around the same time as us, there were 2 companies that launched a very similar model to us, using Amazon SES for their email sending, and almost some of them went with a very, very similar tagline to us as well. But they're not going today. And it's not down to the product. It's not down to it's not down to actually what the product does. It's down to how it's positioned, how it's marketed, and
there's so many variables, right? I mean, that's something that I'm also learning, right? I've been trying to do that for a year now. And in the beginning, when I first started, I was like, this is all about the product or center. There's this cult of the idea, when you think, I have the best idea, so that's why I'll succeed. But then there's, as you mentioned, like marketing, I think is much more important than the idea than being like the emotional roller coaster that it is. So you need to be able to be well mentally as well as a founder and everything. So there's so many variables. So I totally agree with you. And definitely the problem with Twitter sometimes that it only allows a very limited amount of characters, and you cannot specify the whole, advice. Because I totally agree with you. I think there's many variants. It just sells more as well when you tweet and you say, after a year, if you don't have 1,000, then quit. Bam. So many likes.
we wouldn't be speaking if you hadn't have tweeted that. So it's
exactly.
It starts a conversation,
but it can be dangerous. I agree with you. Yeah,
it can be dangerous, and the only thing that scares me about any advice which is given to people on a do this or you'll die kind of basis is that people do make decisions based upon what they see on Twitter. And I'd hate, right? I would hate for anyone to be like, I've been doing this for 18 months, and it could be an awesome product. It really, really could. There's so many talented developers out there with great ideas. They just haven't put the whole package together, and I'd hate for those products to be abandoned.
So for Email Octopus, it took about 5 or 4 years from your first line of code to go full time. What were you doing in between in those 4 years?
So the first line of code was written in 2014, and it was probably closer to 4 years before we went full time. So we set various kind of like points where we would go full time, and that was I think essentially when it could pay our salaries at a almost like a market rate. So what were we doing in between that? So Jonathan, he was working full time at his kind of coin desk gig, and he went and had an honest conversation with his manager. Said, I've got a project that's getting traction. Do you mind if I might spend some more time on it? And he reduced his hours at work. They were willing to do that, and he again did half and half, part time. It's hard to find good people, and if the option is retaining them for a couple of days versus losing them completely, companies may take that option. And I think that's certainly I'd push founders or people starting a bootstrap business. So I'd push them to consider that as an option, or present it to their managers and their current companies, because it is something that if one of our staff came to us and offered us that, or offered that proposal, we would consider it as well. So that's what Jonathan did, and I did the same. I was contracting, so I did. I was consulting on A/B testing and conversion rate optimization, and that kept me going, I suppose. And then it wasn't too long yeah, looking back, it's probably 4 years or thereabouts before going completely like
Yeah.
full
And I
time for
like
the first time.
the story on how you went full time, because there was the time of, I guess, Brexit, right? So the
Yeah.
pound.
Brexit helped us go live.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Can you tell that story as well?
For whatever reason. I think just because it's the world's currency, we traded in US dollars,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
US dollars was the pricing that was shown on site. But we clearly, as Brits, pay our rent, our outgoings are in pounds.
Yeah.
So we were always like, we're just a little bit further away from another 1,000 MRR and we'll go full time, another 1,000 and we'll go full time. And there was all this Brexit stuff going on, and it was we basically woke up the morning after Brexit, and the pound had crashed 20%. So overnight, our incoming had gone up 20%. So
Yeah.
suddenly we could afford to pay each other. We went full time pretty soon after. It completely
incredible.
changed everything here in the UK. That Brexit, people lost their jobs, unfortunately. But for us, it was massively beneficial because the pound crashed and we made more money as a result in the UK.
Yeah. Yeah, in times of crisis, there's always a lot of people that lose money and some that are able to make more money, right? So that's, I guess, the positive thing of for certain people, right? Crisis. You get also with COVID, people selling masks, right? Like
exactly. Well, and the likes of Shopify and co have really seen the boost see a boost from COVID, although that's now
Amazon,
regressed back to the mean. So there are always companies that are very, very fortunate, and we were amazingly one of those companies.
Why did it take so 4 years to reach the point where you could live from Email Octopus?
So we were really cautious, for one. We were massively cautious. I think if we look back, we could have made that jump years earlier. But I think we were always worried that one day this Amazon might swallow us up, or a competitor might come on, take away all our market share. We were quite new to the SaaS world. Now, even 3 years, you're still relative babies, because the first years had zero revenue, and the next 2 years, money's creeping up slowly, but you're also at the same time worried that someone might turn the lights off and suddenly your revenue that was slowly going would completely disappear. So we were just super cautious. Looking back, with the benefit of hindsight, I think if we'd have gone full time earlier, we'd have seen earlier growth and would be bigger than we are today. But at the time, it was the low stress option.
But what was preventing you from growing faster? It was like marketing, acquiring users, features that were missing. What was preventing you?
It was mainly acquiring new customers. I think that's always the thing that stops you from growing faster. If we had gone full time, I'd have had more time to spend on the marketing. I'd have had more time to spend on pricing as well. So we were priced incredibly low. And if there is a mindset shift when your project's part time, you kind of undervalue your time a little bit as well, because it's not bringing home the actual money that puts food on the table. So you're like, this is just beer money, or this isn't the most. If I make an extra 50 quid a month, it's just an extra 50 quid to spend down the pub. Kind of, it's a slight mindset shift. So I think if we'd have gone full time earlier, you begin to treat it as a real business, and okay, let's maximize what we're doing, and likewise features. Our early version of Email Octopus was so simple. It was literally just a rich text editor that you upload a list to an email marketing list, and you upload your HTML or you edit in the rich text editor and you hit send. It was that simple. We didn't, for the first year or maybe even longer, actually, maybe the first 15 months, we didn't enforce unsubscribe links or things like that. We didn't have custom fields, so people couldn't personalize the first and last names. We didn't have any automation functionality. It was such a simple product.
It was cheap. That was the value differentiator, right?
Well, that was the only differentiator. As I said, there were companies that launched at a very similar time that had a more complete product than us. But I think by creating that more complete product, they had kind of mixed up their messaging a little bit. So they weren't competing on price or anything like that. They were just kind of like, who are these people? Whereas they were just another person creating another email marketing platform. Whereas for us, at least, our incredibly simple product made that we had incredibly low, simple pricing, and that, I guess, cemented our positioning in the market. It made it clear to customers what they're getting. Yeah, we are the most affordable email marketing platform out there, and even to the day, we're still half the price of MailChimp, about 2/3 of the price of MailerLite. So we are still the affordable, fully fledged email marketing platform, and that kind of that sticks with you. Those decisions you make in the early days, that we made back in 2017 to position ourselves on price. Those blog posts that were created in 2017, although the people that used us in 2017, they still see us as a very, very low cost affordable email marketing platform, and that still sticks with you to the day. So that helped. I think, again, like making it clear what your offering is was key.
That's also a big issue I see often when you open a landing page and you see your set of marketing tools, all the marketing tools you'll need, and then that says nothing, right? Like, if you're a target customer, you open that and you only have like 5 seconds to watch that page. You're like, what is this? And if you don't understand, you'll just bounce. Whereas if you exactly say, upload your list, write your email, send, and people are like, that's what I need. Bam.
And send it for 10% of the price of the nearest competition. It's obvious what they're getting. So, and that's what we did. We used Amazon SES to send emails, and I think some of our competitors launched that product thinking that was the USP, that people wanted to send emails using Amazon SES.
Right.
That for us, was never really our unique selling point. That was just a means to an end. Our unique selling point was our price. It just happened that at the time, the cheapest way for us to do it was to outsource email delivery to Amazon SES.
What is the most successful marketing technique for you to acquire new customers?
So our most successful one ever that we did was giving away free email templates. In the early days, people had to upload the HTML or use the rich text editor to kind of create a plain text email. We wanted to use create a drag and drop editor, like pretty much all the email marketing platforms had at the time. In doing so, we were creating email templates, and we had seen, I think about 6 months earlier, someone launched some email templates on Product Hunt, paid, and they got about 1,000 upvotes, and we were like, hang on, why don't we give these email templates away for free at the same time? We're building them anyway. Like, they're not particularly the selling point of the platform. The building blocks and being able to drag and drop the templates, the blocks to create your own template was the real selling point. So it was like, okay, if we give these away for free, the kind of people that, if someone needs email templates, then the chances are they need an email marketing platform too, right?
Right.
They're going to send emails. So we gave them away for free, and we had, last time I looked, I think about 55,000 people downloaded those, and obviously to download them, they had to give their email address. But so up until the GDPR came in, they had to give their email address to download. Now they don't have to give their email address to do so, but we asked them and asked that they consent to opt in.
But how did you activate them afterwards? You just send an email saying, hey, by the way, if you're interested in a product like this.
Yeah, exactly. So we added them to a onboarding kind of list, drip feed list, and spent time on that. So that was a really good way, quite a low cost. You think how much we spend on Google Ads these days. If you can just dedicate a little bit of dev resource to building out side projects that kind of complement your main project and attract the same kind of customers, then that's it's worthwhile investment. So that was good.
That's a very good strategy.
And then in the early days, there's the website Quora, the question and answer website. So back in the early days, there were some good ways to use that. So they used to have something called answer wikis. So now you have to answer as a person below each. So if someone writes a question on Quora saying, can you recommend an email marketing platform? I have to now respond and say, I recommend Email Octopus. back in the early days, they used to have something called an answer wiki. So below every question was an answer, and anyone could edit the answer wiki. And we just kept on editing the answer wikis to add Email Octopus in.
Interesting.
I
love this growth hacks. That's so cool.
Yeah. That was. I mean, that got us to a decent proportion of our customers in the early days. And the nice thing of running a product like Email Octopus is people are constantly asking for recommendations on what email marketing products should I use, once you've got that kind of ball rolling, people begin to recommend you and all that kind of stuff as well. So those really kicked us off, and those were in the early days. That was kind of what took us from 1K MRR to 30K.
No, that's very smart. It's really smart, and I totally agree. So building other kind of free giveaway products around your target customers normally really helps grow.
Yep.
And let's talk a little bit about your challenges. So one of the biggest challenges I was reading in your blog post was people using your services to send a lot of spam and nasty things.
Yeah.
So the first question that came to my head were like, what kind of nasty things? What is like the worst they would send using your services?
It depends what way you sway politically, but there are. If you think about, particularly, Donald Trump came to power in the late, I can't remember what it was, but probably 2016, 2017, something like that. Anyway, the political landscape got very kind of split, and we had some people that I think the majority of the world would agree were quite had gone too far, let's say, politically. And we had some people like that using us. I'm not going to drop names or anything like that, but they would be the people that, if you've been on the internet, you'd recognize the names. And I think they've been deplatformed by pretty much every social media platform there is out there now. So we had people like that using us. That's the one that takes up the most brain power, because I think everyone wants to champion free speech and allow freedom of expression, all that kind of stuff. And it's about where you draw that line. Is it at what point does it become hateful, racist, homophobic? At what point do you try and subvert the election that happened in America, and do you try and organize a riot in the White House? That kind of stuff. So that takes a lot of brain power because it's not clear cut. Right, spam's clear cut, and if someone's sending emails that people haven't opted into, we get so many complaints very, very quickly from people being like, I didn't opt in to receive these. It's a clear-cut decision. The law is clear there. It's on the other stuff that takes a lot of brain power. And I mean, I'm glad I'm not Facebook or Twitter or one of these platforms where they get a lot of abuse for not clamping down on fake news.
How do you manage that? Do you have to manually analyze these messages?
We manually approve every customer that uses Email Octopus. So I think the larger platforms, so MailChimp use AI and look at the language used in the text. There's if there's Bitcoin or similar language used, they'll just ban you straight out, and they'll look at your metrics. We're not quite that complex. We haven't built out those tools yet, so a lot of it's manual.
These Vice documentaries on YouTube, they're always with the kind of taboo topics, and one of the documentaries was about people on Facebook that have to decide if something can be shared or not, and they are speaking about it, and they're like, the things we see, they actually have mental problems after that, psychological problems.
Thankfully we're not that bad, but it's horrible.
Was it the hardest challenge while building your business, or there were other challenges that you had, motivation wise, or things where you thought, okay, let's give up?
That was the hardest challenge in the early days, right? Because someone signs up, they're paying you $500 a month, but they are perhaps going on to an area of politics that is going to not be very appetizing. And that's then like, okay, you have to balance the business risk of being associated with these people. You have to balance the moral argument of telling your girlfriend and your family that, we're sending emails out on this person's behalf, plus the fact that you're going to make less money. And, in the early days, that money is going directly in your pocket and is used to pay your mortgage and rent. So that's difficult from three angles, and is the most difficult thing that we came across in the early days. Now it's a little bit easier, right? Because the business is established. We do over
just
2 million
people.
Yeah. So we do millions in revenue, etc. So we can just, what's $500 a month? It's not worth thinking about. But in the early days that was really tough. Now as we grow, I think you do run into questions around motivation. In the early days, motivation was simple, right? It's kind of like we need to survive. We need to create. We need to build a business that at least pays me more than my last job did. As
you never questioned that you would be able to get there. You never thought like maybe it won't ever grow more than X.
No, I mean we knew that the business was growing, and we knew that there was a need for email marketing, and we knew that if 100 people or even 10 people are using the product, then there's 8 billion people in the world. Lots of them have a business or associated with the business. There's billions of businesses in the world. The chances are that if we can serve 10 businesses, there's probably another 110 businesses we can serve. And so, no, we never had those doubts. I don't think we ever doubted that. It was just a matter of time. And, things can be done to accelerate that. So, the motivation issues kind of come at a later stage of a business, at least for us. Once you've gone through one data protection law change and you've built a business that is making predictable recurring revenue every month, and it's very kind of financially rewarding. The question around motivation is then like, okay, what next? Do I want to hire more people? Well, it's going to mean more problems in terms of HR problems, and it might not necessarily reflect in the revenue. Or are we happy running as it stands? But I feel slightly unfulfilled in life. Maybe I should be doing more. I see other companies growing a lot quicker and faster than us, so that brings doubts. And then the other one is like, oh, should we sell it? And then what happens if we sell to the wrong partner? What happens to our team? And then obviously there's like, okay, maybe we take on investment. It's like, well, okay, we're already profitable, we're making money, there's money in the bank, we're not spending that. So that's what I don't like, is you probably kind of gauged, is choice. Choice makes things difficult. Choice means you have to weigh things up and you have to debate which route to go. The choices come when you're a bigger business. They're less apparent, or they were less apparent for us certainly in the earlier stages, because the choice was either we build Email Octopus or we don't pay our rent this month, right? Either we get 100 customers in this year, or we have to give it up. It's kind of like that. So
isn't it the same though? Now you can also think we either sell it or we continue.
But they're both two very attractive choices, aren't they? It's if your choices are either we fail or we succeed, everyone just wants to succeed. It's a very obvious choice. Right now, the choices for me are, at least this is where I stand. As we grow, this is something that we run into. I've had friends who are businesses at some stage. I think people do run into, once you have those choices, and none of them are unattractive choices. They're all quite attractive, right now at least. I love turning up at Email Octopus every day and building out the product, but at the same time, being on the front page of TechCrunch saying that we've just raised $10 million in an investment round would be also quite attractive. So there's a lot of, because we are doing quite well, there's a lot of choice.
Another option is, of course, to go more the indie way, where basically you try to automate as much as possible, and then you don't want to grow, but it's also kind of, you have that steady MRR, and then you can do other stuff.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
you still don't have a boss, which was your goal, right? Like not having a boss.
yeah. And I still don't want a boss, and that's why that is what makes selling unattractive, and that's what makes investment unattractive.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot to consider, and that for me is where the challenges now lie, I suppose, and that's what takes up the time and energy, and in my head at least, and Jonathan and I spend time thinking about.
It's very interesting because normally when people I interview here are more in the early stage, and I never heard about that. But of course, it's a total valid challenge. Like you reach the point where you have nailed it. You have won the bootstrapping game. You're making money. You're paying your salaries and everything. You're growing, and now what? Right? Like because it's also fun to when you're starting and trying to conquer the world and getting people to like your product and use your product. And
we shouldn't be feeling this way because we're in a very, very privileged situation, and believe me, I'm not complaining about the situation we're being in at all. I'm just being upfront and honest. We're not Elon Musk who started his companies with a real vision of it. We're gonna put people on the moon or anything like that. Like Email Octopus, like a lot of indie business, I suppose, was born out of us wanting to send emails out cheaply. We're not in love with email. We're not changing the world. We've grown to love the business, and we've grown to love the people within the business. But because we didn't have that clear-cut vision. That's perhaps why we're running into what we are right now.
No, definitely interesting challenge, and thank you for sharing it also here with the wannabe entrepreneurs. So that a lot of us know that one day that's something to
something to look forward to.
It's something to look forward to for sure.
It sounds crazy me coming on a podcast like this, speaking to wannabe entrepreneurs, but and saying that boo-hoo, look at me, but it's not that at all. But that genuinely is what takes up my time right now. Very, very different challenges to what they'll be facing.
Do you ever speak with other entrepreneurs in the same situation?
So we probably the best thing we ever did as a business was when we first kind of started working on Email Octopus and taking it seriously, is we shared an office with two other very similar businesses who were about a year on from us. A company called Ticket Tailor and a company called PayHip. So Ticket Tailor is similar to Eventbrite, PayHip similar to Gumroad. So they've both kind of taken an established model and either made it cheaper, easier, kind of thing. And we shared an office with them here in London, and that was so invaluable because for us, a lot of the challenges we had in the early days, and these are kind of like really, really boring challenges like tax compliance, finding an accountant, and where do we host our platform, all that kind of stuff. We just spoke with them. They'd already come across them, and they're like, oh yeah, we know this accountant. They're great. Speak with them. Oh yeah, this is what we're doing for Vatmos. Okay, and we some of the stuff we pulled resource, and I became like the Vatmos and GDPR expert of the office, and then we had some of the other people we share the office with were like the infrastructure experts. So that was invaluable, and we still speak on a day-to-day basis. In fact, I'm going out for some dinner tonight with Johnny from Ticket Tailor, who is they're probably still a year, maybe a year and a half ahead of us. They're very very successful business and doing really really well. So we still speak, and we still very very open about our challenges. We still share advice and things that have worked for us recently. We still call them growth hacks because that's what we called them in the early days. And we were like, oh, you've got any new growth hacks for me? So yeah, we still speak. So I love doing that. That was invaluable in the early days, and now because I do miss the building aspect, I try to spend some time speaking to new entrepreneurs who are starting out, who perhaps need that little bit of advice, whether it's tangible advice or just someone being like, yeah, press on, keep on going. So I dedicate at least an hour every week for that. So people can just, I've got a Calendly that's accessible on the Email Octopus website where anyone starting out a business can come and speak to me.
I might add you to our experts page on the Wannabe Entrepreneur, because I have a bunch of experts that the community can reach out to. So
Okay.
this could be interesting because it's
Still sounds
bet you
crazy me
that-
being called an expert, but I hope just try and lend the best advice I can, or at least sometimes it just helps talking through your problems with someone, doesn't it? Sometimes it helps crystallize.
You said you're making millions at the moment, so what are your numbers? Like, how big is your team at the moment?
Yeah, so our team, we have 4 in customer support, and then we have 2 full-time developers, me and Jonathan. So in total 8.
8. Okay.
Yeah, 8. The biggest team is customer support, because that's something we've tried to kind of. It's an easy way to differentiate yourself in the early days. So we've got 24-hour support, whereas a lot of our competitors don't, and it's not stupid money to do so. So we do that, and we are on about 2.2 million ARR at the minute.
Wow.
So I think in total revenue since we've been going, we've done over 5 million, maybe getting towards 6 million now.
And those are those amazing numbers, like that every bootstrapper dreams of. That's amazing.
Yeah. So we've done a fair amount, and the nice thing with bootstrapping is the money. It kind of like snowballs, right? So I think it was back in 2019. I remember being delighted, crossing 1 million in revenue, but like total cumulative revenue. And now only 3 years on, we're now at a point where that's 5, nearly 6. So really, really, really strong numbers, and numbers that we're proud of in their own way.
That's amazing. Thomas, thank you so much for your time. As a last question, since you also love to speak with wannabe entrepreneurs and give them advice, there's a lot of them listening to this podcast. What is the advice you'd give to someone starting out? So they have some side projects, or they have some ideas. They want to become, bootstrappers, indie makers. What would be your advice?
Yeah. So my advice is always find similar entrepreneurs who are a short way ahead of you. So if you are looking to get to 1,000 in MRR, find entrepreneurs who are 1,000, 2,000 in MRR, and speak with them. Find out what struggles they're going through. Find out how they've identified their market. Find out what they're doing marketing-wise, and just surround yourself with people on a similar journey, because it is a long journey. There are times where you will have elements of self-doubt, and if you've got people just a tiny little bit ahead of you, it gives you that additional motivation to keep on pressing on. So that would be it, really.
That's the best. Like, I have to plug here the community because that's exactly what the wannabe entrepreneur space is for, So we have more than 60 people, and all in that similar phase, and some a little bit more advanced than the others, and then just helping out each other, and it's actually amazing. So thank you so much, Thomas, for sharing your journey here with the wannabe entrepreneurs. It was really, really interesting to learn. Starting from going to India as a teenage, to a designer, and then a web designer, now making millions. So really great story. So thank you so much.
No worries. Thanks for your time, and speak to you soon.
And that was my interview with Thomas. If you want to support this podcast, I don't do any advertisement, but there's many ways for you to make sure that this will continue to exist. First of all, you can become a member of the WB Space. It costs $10 per month, and you get access to an amazing community filled with bootstrappers, all of us sharing our journey and building our projects together. Besides that, you can also acquire my Bootstrappers Guide. It costs $10. It's a one-time payment, and you get an amazing guide that I derived from all the interviews I did on this podcast. Besides that, you also get 1 month access to the community. So it's a great deal, and you just can find it on my website, wannabe-entrepreneur.com. You can also find merch, amazing t-shirts and cups and mugs and everything at store.wannabe-entrepreneur.com. Besides that, obviously, sharing it around with your friends, your entrepreneur friends, will take this podcast a long way. This was another Wannabe Entrepreneur. See you next time.